Well, good Monday afternoon. Welcome back to Martin's Reef and Koi, and we're looking at the reef tank. So this is a video about the reef and not the koi today. So sorry to all those who have signed up because they like my koi videos, but it's not really a koi video time of year. Clock's changed on Saturday. It's now dark by 5:30 at night, so it's more of a indoors time of the year, part of the hobby rather than outdoors. Anyway, what's this video going to be about? Well, people think marine tanks are complicated and expensive and difficult and all these things, and to a certain extent they are all of those things. But what I thought would be interesting is to go through what I've got in my sump, my filter, because the recommendation is always to have a sump with a marine tank. So a sump is a separate tank, normally below the main tank, where the water drains down to be filtered mechanically and chemically. The biological filtration takes place in the actual tank, with the rock being your biological media and containing the nitrogen fixing bacteria required to break ammonia down to nitrate. So that happens within the tank, on the rock surfaces and on the glass surfaces, and to a certain extent a little bit in the sump. But what happens in the sump in my tank is mechanical and chemical and a little bit of light filtration. So we'll come on to that in a minute. So I'll pause the video here, get the sump doors open, and we'll have a look in the sump. Well, welcome to the sump. So this is the tank sitting underneath the display tank, and this is where various things happen to the water. So the water comes in the back corner down these two pipes. This is the main drain and this is the overflow. So this is the one that's bringing down the majority of the water, and there's only a little bit of water coming down the overflow. And on the end of these two pipes are two filter socks. Now these are 200 micron, so that means the holes that let the water through are only 200 microns wide. Now how that relates to a millimetre or what, I'm not sure, but it's very small. And the idea is those filter socks take out any suspended food, any poop, any rubbish that's in the water that's come down from the top tank. And those filter socks take 3 to 4 days before the right hand one will become clogged, because it's removed so much muck. And once it's clogged, it starts to overflow. I can hear it overflowing because it's quite noisy, and that prompts me to change them. So I will pop 2 clean ones on, and then to clean them you just turn them inside out and run them on a rinse cycle in your washing machine. No soap powders or anything like that, just a plain rinse cycle, and that's good enough to get them clean enough to last 3 to 4 days. So that is the filter socks, and that's the main mechanical filtration for the tank. Now here is a device called a protein skimmer. It's a marine aquarium device that works by creating thousands and thousands of little bubbles which trap on their surface dissolved poop and dissolved waste, and it brings it all up to the top into this collection cup where it overflows really slowly, then goes down this pipe into my collecting container, which is an old milk container. I've used this 6.1 because it's quite slim and it fits behind my my cabinet door. So protein skimmer, won't see those in a freshwater setup. They work best in a marine because the air tends to, in salt water, make much better micro bubbles. In theory, you could still use one in a freshwater system. I know there are some designed for ponds, being a koi keeper. People use to take dissolved organics out of ponds, but I use one obviously on a marine tank. They're pretty much a staple that most people will have. Now going along the back there, you can see a big thick black tube. That is my UV sterilizer, and the reason I have a UV sterilizer is to make sure that I don't get any pathogens in the tank that will harm the fish. Marine fish mostly come from the wild. They only take a matter of days to get from the wild to your fish shop, and if your fish shop doesn't quarantine properly, they can come to you carrying all sorts of fishborne parasites that could, if allowed to, wipe your tank out. So by having a UV sterilizer, it doesn't totally eradicate them, but if you was to get something, it minimises the harm they can cause. So I have a pump there which pumps water into this end just there of the UV, and the water comes out of the UV into that end section, which is where the return pump is, that pumps water back up to the top tank from this sump tank. So it's known as the return section. Now inside the sump, you'll see I've got a few rocks. That's to help with filtration. I've got a sponge filter that I have in here just in case I ever need to make a quick hospital tank. So I have a cycled filter, and then there's a big ball of green algae there. Now the green algae, the purpose of that, this is known as a refugium when you grow that in your sump, and the algae will consume nitrates and phosphates, keeping those things very low in the tank, which will stop nuisance algae like hair algae, bubble algae forming in the main display tank. So the purpose of growing algae in your tank, in your sump, in your filter, is to stop algae growing in your main part of your tank, the bit you look at. Just out of interest, there's a few things here. These white things are sponges that are growing. There's some here. They grow in the sump because there's no fish in here to eat them. There's none in my actual tank because the fish up there would eat them pretty quickly. Now with the refugium, these lights are not normally on during the day. You run the lights during the night when your main tank's lights are off, and that is to help avoid pH swings. But that algae is growing really well and it's doing a great job. My nitrates are just 10 parts per million and my phosphate is 0.03 parts per million, which is really good. And in the end here we have a couple of media bags down here. That one there contains carbon, and there's another one with Roaphos in it, which is a iron oxide for removing phosphate as well. So phosphate is the enemy in a marine tank because it will cause massive outbreaks of algae if you don't keep it in control, and it's really important to do what you can to keep the phosphate levels down, because the fish, when they poop out a lot of phosphate and nitrate, well, ammonia, sorry, which then gets converted to nitrate. And the only other thing really apart to say about the sump is this blue light is an automatic top up. Now water is constantly evaporating out of my system. It doesn't like to be salty, and that evaporation needs to be replaced, and it's pure water that gets evaporated out, not the salt. The salt stays behind. So if you didn't top up, the salt level in the water would go up as you evaporate more pure water out of the tank. So to counter that, the auto top up constantly tops the water up. As the water goes below the sensor, it will pop some fresh purified water, no salt in the water that's added because the salt's already in the tank. So that auto top up maintains my water level and it maintains my salinity. So that's an overview of the tank. Hope you didn't find it too complicated, but that's what allows me to have this. The sump is what allows me to have a tank like this, and as you can see, there's no nuisance algae in there whatsoever. My fish choices are also help with that because I've got 3 tangs and a fox face, all of which eat algae, and the tank is currently doing very well indeed. Anyway, I've waffled long enough. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.